Have you ever found a cloud reference architecture that looks absolutely perfect, like the answer to all your problems, only to realize it doesn't really fit the world you actually live in? Well, in this explainer, we're going to flip the script on how we think about these designs, turning them from rigid plans into incredibly powerful launchpads for your own custom solutions. Let's dive in. You know the feeling, right? You're scrolling through the docs from AWS or Azure or GCP, and then boom, you see it. It's the diagram, the perfect layout for your new app, your data pipeline, whatever it is. It's so clean, so elegant, and it feels like it solves every single one of your problems right out of the box. But then, reality comes crashing in. Your company is already using a bunch of tools from other providers. You've got existing CI/CD pipelines, different monitoring setups, and, of course, the big one, a mandate to not get locked into a single vendor. And all of a sudden, that perfect diagram starts to look a little less perfect, doesn't it? So the big question is, how do we bridge that gap? That's exactly what we're here to tackle. First, we're going to talk about the common trap that these architectures set. Then we'll get into a really crucial mindset shift, thinking of them as a recipe, not a blueprint. After that, I'll give you a simple 3-step process to break down any design. We'll walk through a real-world example, and finally, we'll talk about what the true role of an architect looks like today. Okay, let's kick things off with section 1, the reference architecture trap. Look, the appeal of these plans is huge. They promise a fast, proven way to get a working solution up and running. And that temptation to just, copy and paste it exactly as it's shown, it's incredibly strong. But here's the thing, blindly following that map leads to some pretty serious hidden dangers. You're looking at deep vendor lock-in, which makes it super expensive and painful to ever change your mind. You build these brittle systems that are so tightly coupled to one ecosystem, and you completely ignore all the great tools and the expertise your team already has. Worst of all, you miss out on huge opportunities to optimize for cost or performance by picking the absolute best tool for the job, no matter whose logo is on it. And this leads us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer, a really crucial shift in your mindset. We have to stop seeing these diagrams as rigid blueprints we have to follow and start treating them like inspirational recipes. So, what's the actual difference? Well, a blueprint, that implies you just copy-paste it. It's focused on one vendor, and frankly, it often leads to a fragile design. But an inspirational guide? That's totally different. That's about digging in to understand the core principles. It lets you use the best-of-breed tools for the job, and you end up building something that's truly resilient and flexible from the ground up. So here's the key, right here. We're using these documents to understand the fundamental patterns. What is the principle behind the service they're using? Is it a message queue? Is it scalable object storage? A managed database? Once you get the why, you can then adapt the what using your own stack. Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, in section 3, we're going to get super practical. This is your 3-step deconstruction process for any reference architecture you find out there in the wild. Step 1, deconstruct the components. I mean, literally list out every icon on that diagram and write down what its job is. Step 2, and this is the most important part, isolate the core principle. You have to ask, why is this component here? Don't think, oh, that's AWS S3. No, think, okay, this is a highly available, scalable place to put files. Then finally, step 3, map that principle to your tools. If the principle is scalable object storage, great. Now you can look at Azure Blob Storage, Google Cloud Storage, or even an on-prem solution like MinIO. See the difference?
All right, theory time is over. Let's make this real. In section 4, we are putting this whole process into practice with a super common example. So let's say we found that perfect AWS diagram, and it's using Amazon S3 for its object storage. But our company has a strategic partnership with Microsoft, and we want to use Azure services where it makes sense. So we're going to apply our 3-step process right now to adapt this thing. So here's what that mapping really looks like. Notice the most important part. The core principle for both S3 and Azure Blob is identical. It's scalable object storage. That's our anchor. Now, the implementation details, yeah, those are different. The APIs are different, the security models are different, AWS's IAM versus Azure AD and SaaS tokens. And look, this adaptation isn't free. It adds some complexity. Your team now has to know how to manage 2 different security models, and you've got to think about data transfer costs between clouds. But because you're focused on the principle, you can make that strategic trade-off with your eyes wide open. And all of this, really, it leads us to our final and honestly most important point.
Thinking this way completely elevates the role of the architect. It's about so much more than just implementation. And here's the bottom line. Your real value isn't just knowing which buttons to click in the AWS console. It's in understanding the deep principles of good system design and being able to pull together the best tools from any environment to solve your business's unique problems. You become a strategic integrator. I love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head. Those diagrams you find online, they're just someone else's map. Your real skill, your true value, is in taking inspiration from all those maps out there and then drawing one that perfectly fits your own unique journey and your own destination. So, with this new way of looking at things, seeing these reference architectures not as strict rules, but as suggestions, as starting points for your own creativity, the real question is, what are you going to build now? That's all for this one. Thanks for joining us.